SATA is very common in today's PCs and laptops. The serial AT attachment, or SATA, or SATA, or SATA, however you want to say it, is a computer bus that's used for the transmission of data between hard drives and the motherboard, or an adapter card. It allows for data transfer rates, or DTRs, between 1.5 gigabits per second and 16 gigabits per second, depending on the revision of SATA. Traditional SATA uses two cables, data and power. Data connectivity is accomplished with a 7-pin cable, which supplies the drive with two pairs of conductors that work in a serial fashion, meaning 1 bit at a time each. Power is supplied by a 15-pin cable that includes 3.3 volts, 5 volts, and 12 volts. Keep in mind that some SATA power cables are color-coded. They're orange, red, and yellow, or they simply use all one color, such as black, including the two black grounding wires. So this is a typical setup with a 3.5-inch magnetic-based drive, a mechanical drive with moving parts. And you have that power port and the data port, and you use these connectors for those. Now here we have a 2.5-inch solid-state drive, also SATA, so it has the same types of connectors, 7-pin data and 15-pin power. And they have vertical tabs in the center so that you know how to orient the cables when you connect them. Let's take a look at the SATA revisions over time. And so first we have SATA revision 1.0, which has a maximum data transfer rate of 1.5 gigabits per second, or 150 megabytes per second. 2.0 did 3 gigabits per second, or 300 megabytes per second, but it's unlikely that you'll see either of those unless it's a pretty old system, because in 2009, SATA revision 3.0 was released. And so it's been around for at least a decade, depending on when you're watching this video. And that allows for 6 gigabits per second, or 600 megabytes per second. Now you may say, hey, I was dividing by 8 and the math doesn't really work out for me. And that's because of encoding. There's actually a little bit of overhead, and this 6 gigabits per second over the connection actually goes down to about 4.8 gigabits per second. Divide that by 8, and then you actually get 600 megabytes per second to the drive maximum. This is very common. As far as SATA goes, that's the most common that you're going to see. But there's also SATA revision 3.2. 3.2 uses SATA Express, which can work on an SATA Express port, or it can work within an M.2 configuration, or even USB 3.0. But if you're using M.2, an NVMe PCIe based card will usually be preferred because it allows for higher data transfer rates. While this SATA 3.2 and SATA Express can do just about 2 gigabytes per second, a lot of the NVMe M.2 cards can go much further than that. They can go up to about 3,500 megabytes per second, or 3.5 gigabytes per second. So these are the two you really want to know. 3.0 you're going to see a lot, but you might also see 3.2 out there. And the 3.0 port that's used looks like that. That is the data port. That's your standard 7-pin port. Similar, it's basically what we showed before. This is just looking head on into that port. That's 2 of these ports actually. 3.2 uses a sort of a triple port. It's 3-in-1. And this is known as an 18-pin port. It's 7 plus 7 plus 4. And it's one cable that is kind of 3 connectors in one that connects to this. So a little difference there. And you need to have that on the motherboard or on an adapter card to actually take advantage of SATA Express, or again, like I say, M.2 or USB 3.0. But again, for higher speeds, people are usually going in different directions. They might be using an M.2 NVMe card currently. Okay, so a little bit about the SATA revisions. Definitely want to memorize it. Commit the SATA 3.0 and 3.2 revisions, their data transfer rates, and the port types to your memory. So there's a little bit about SATA.